Hello, this is Bible Academy for Children. I'm Pastor Teacher Curtis Omo, and today we're going to look at Psalm 49. Now, before we get started, as always, let's make sure that we have confessed the sin we know that we've committed. And then also, we have to choose to allow the Spirit of God who indwells us to control us. Let's make those decisions while we pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you again for this opportunity, the privilege, everything you provided so we can study your word today. We ask that our hearts and minds be open and ready to receive it. In Jesus' name, amen. Psalm 49 is a wisdom psalm. Now, if you've studied Proverbs with me, you know something about wisdom. Wisdom psalms teach on how to live according to the Torah. Now, the Torah is the Old Testament law. So this is additional principles that God has set up on how to live life on earth. They give practical instruction on how to live a good and productive life. Wisdom psalms also recognize that God has an order to this world, and that following wisdom from God is the best guide in this world. Now, wisdom psalms have different themes, not a whole lot. There's only like 4 total, but one of them is what we have here. It is 2 contrasting lifestyles, that of the rich and that of the faithful believer. Now, we'll discuss some of those issues as we proceed through the psalm. The outline: a call to listen, that's A, call to listen, verses 1 through 4. B is a question, the question, verses 5 and 6. C is the folly of the rich, verses 7 through 13. And D is an answer to the question, verses 14 through 20. So that question is answered, the question that's in verses 5 and 6, in this 4th portion of this psalm. The message is not complicated. It's a long sentence. Let's read through it carefully. The wise psalmist teaches that the rich and powerful, though they think highly of themselves and are approved by many in the world, their end is nothing more than like a dead animal in the grave. And that the faithful believer, who has suffered through the abuse of the rich, has great blessing for all eternity. You might want to read that or pause and read this 2 or 3 times to understand where this psalm is going. It's not a difficult topic, but it's a very important topic. Let's begin. Psalm 49, we have the superscription: for the director of music of the sons of Korah, a psalm. If you studied previous psalms right before this one, we've already learned about the sons of Korah. They were a group of Levites who were appointed to the music ministry for the people of Israel. So let's begin. A call to listen, verses 1 through 4. Hear this, all peoples. Give ear, all inhabitants of the world. The first thing we should see is that this is a call for everyone, believer, unbeliever, rich and poor, everyone, to listen to what is going to be said. The entire human race. This is a lesson for everyone. He adds more to the list of people who are to hear. Verse 2, even the sons of mankind, even the sons of man, rich and poor together. Now keep in mind that this is poetry, and you'll see repetition, and sometimes repetition is not only to help us learn, but also to make a point stronger. So this is basically saying everyone. Sons, that includes daughters, family, rich and poor, every line of life need to hear this. So everyone is invited to hear what the psalmist has to say. Whether you're high or low, rich or poor. Verses 3 and 4, he's ready to get the people's attention. Listen to what he says. My mouth shall speak wisdom. The meditation of my heart shall be understanding. There's our word wisdom. Wisdom is the word that means practical teaching. That means things you learn that you can use in everyday life. He says the meditation, meditation is when you think about something, you concentrate on some words or saying. He's going to say something from his thinking, and it shall be understanding. And what he's saying is he's going to give you some understanding of wisdom, the point he's about to make. Notice I got two words underlined. There are two key words. There's two key words the next sentence also. Next sentence is also the next verse, verse 4. I also underlined them. I will incline my ear to a proverb. I will expound my riddle on the lyre. So the first thing he says is that I've listened to this already. I've already got this message from God. I will incline my ear to a proverb. He's heard this from God, and he's going to expound it. He's going to expound my riddle on the lyre. Now the proverb is this word of wisdom. All right? He's going to give us understanding of it. I will expound. Expound means he's going to open it up. What's he going to open? A riddle. A riddle isn't the same in the Hebrew as it is, we understand it in English. A riddle in the Hebrew often means a difficult saying. Sometimes they're obscure. We call them an enigma. So what he's going to do, he's going to open up some understanding to people. It's not hard. The unbeliever can understand it. It's just that they have a hard time accepting it. They don't take this philosophy that they're about to hear as serious. So what this wise psalmist is saying is that he has a difficult saying for you to understand, and he's going to sing it accompanied with music. When he says, I'll expound my riddle on the lyre. Do you know what a lyre is? You've probably seen them in pictures. I don't know if you've ever seen anyone play them. I suppose people still play them. They look something like a U. Then they have a crossbar like this. Then the wires they play, like guitar strings, the strings they play are attached down here. And it's not very big. They hold it, they can hold it in their arms and play it with their fingers. It's like a small harp. So he's going to give the answer to this proverb, or this difficult saying, while playing music. But he opens up with a question, and then he's going to teach the lesson. Here's the question. The question is in verses 5 and 6. I'll read it together. Why should I fear in days of evil, when the iniquity of those who cheat me surrounds me, those who trust in their wealth and boast in their great riches? The days of evil are days of trouble, difficult times. Why should I fear difficult times? When the iniquity, that means those who are guilty of what we're about to talk about, of those who cheat me, people who surround him and cheat him. Let me explain the word cheat for a moment. Interesting word. It means footprint or heel. We might say someone's acting like a heel. Well, it's not quite the same meaning, but the idea of heel here is that probably someone's behind you, and they're planning on somehow to trip you up or set a trap. They plan some devious action to take advantage of you. So what he's saying is, here's the question. It's a rhetorical question. Now, a rhetorical question is sort of like it's a question that doesn't expect an answer. In fact, it makes a statement as a question. So what this is saying, why should I fear in days of evil when the iniquity of those who cheat me surround me? It's like making a statement that's saying, there is no reason I should fear. Fear those who want to cheat me. It goes on to describe those who want to cheat him, those who trust in their wealth and boast in their great riches. So what he's saying is, these last two lines describe the character of these people who want to cheat him. He's telling people not to fear the days of trouble. Now, the only ones that can really accept this as truth is going to be believers. Unbelievers, I would say that some accept it, okay? But most are too caught up into the world to have enough discernment to see this truth. But here's what it's saying. People often fear days of trouble. As you grow up and you have financial responsibilities, perhaps you go to college, you have to pay off a college loan, you have to pay off a car, you have to pay for your apartment and all these other things. It can get overwhelming sometimes. Debt coming due, payments not made. Sometimes you can't seem to make enough money to make all the ends meet. People are not to fear that. That is, those who have money and power. Whether it be the creditors, or the landlord, or the insurance companies, whoever has money and power. Now, of course, we should pay our bills. We should watch them closely so we don't get in too much debt if we get in debt. Make our payments. Let God provide. But the point here is, don't be afraid of those people who got the money and the power. Even though they're going to cheat you and be dishonest and abusive. God will deal with them. God will deal with them. This last year or so, our electric bills have went way up. I've changed companies like 3 times in the last 4 years. It doesn't seem to help because the utilities company are controlled by government organizations that raise the prices anyway. So now the prices keep going up, and we're paying not twice as much, but half much more. In other words, if I paid $100 last month, now I'm paying $150 every month. But it's a lot more than that, believe me. So bills go higher and higher. Same with the water. It's gone really high. And my income isn't much more at all. So you end up wondering, how are you going to pay for this? How are you going to pay for it? And you trust the Lord to provide somehow. And we usually depend upon work. In my position, I depend upon retirement money as well as donations. My sons contribute to their share, though they have to go to school. They can't work full time yet. So all I'm saying is that don't fear those who are rich and control the power. That's not what we live for. We don't try to get in their positions. Did you hear me? We don't live for money and power. Now what's going to happen is, after the psalmist has described and said, you're not supposed to be fearful of those people and their ways. Yes, we know they're all around you, and they'll cheat you, and they'll abuse you, and they'll raise the prices for no good reason, and they'll overcharge you. Those days of trouble, let's look at what wisdom says. Now listen, if you fear those people, now I know most of you who listen to children's are probably young. But when you grow up and you get afraid of those people who have all the money and the power, you may call them a boss or a supervisor. It may be a company that somehow you bought something, you owe them money. The psalmist is going to show you how their line of thinking is wrong. They're powerful and rich. The motivation to get that way was wrong. He's going to show you how. And that is in our next section, and that's called the folly of the rich. Verse 7 begins to give us, here I can't get it all up there at once. So let's put C, the folly of the rich, 7 through 14. And verse 7 begins to give what the rich cannot do. Even though they got all this money, there's some things they cannot do. Verse 7. Now listen, this is a great lesson. Surely he, that's the rich, cannot redeem a brother or give God a ransom price for him. Now this surely means basically certainly. This can happen. He can't buy a brother from death. This is what it's going to get to. He can't stop someone from dying, no matter how much money he has. He can't pay God off or give God a ransom price for him. You see, God controls life and death. The rich and powerful cannot in any way affect that with their money. You can't purchase a person from death. Here we have him as a brother, perhaps as an older brother. One has looked up to him and he's ill and he's about to die, and you can't just say, God, I'm going to give you a couple $1 million to keep my brother alive another year. Nope, doesn't work that way. Now some might say, well, yeah, you can get them on medical devices and extend their life. You're not extending their life. Even if you extend it 10 years, or you think you do, that was in God's plan. He let you extend it, what you think you did, 10 years. So he dies 10 years later. That's exactly when God wanted him to die. So you gained nothing. You just think you did. See, this is the delusion that the rich and powerful think. They think they control these things. They don't. They don't. They certainly don't even control their own lives when it comes to life and death. All right, now let's get a little complicated here. So we have this sentence that starts out, surely he cannot redeem a brother or give God a ransom for him. Then there's a parenthesis. Verse 8 is a parenthesis. Let me show it to you. What I'm going to do here, I was trying to rearrange things. That's why I had a pause there. Here it is. Surely he cannot redeem a brother or give God a ransom price for him, for the redemption price of their life is too costly, and he ceases forever. So this is explaining why he can't do it. This is why he can't redeem a brother or give God a ransom price for him. Why? Because the price is too much. This is a way of saying it can't be done. Man cannot buy life. And he ceases forever. So this means he's going to die. So there's no way you can buy someone's life to extend it. You know, have you ever heard of people looking for the fountain of youth? They did that in Florida many years ago. Didn't find it. Wasn't there. Doesn't exist. Or people trying to somehow freeze their bodies and come back to life, you know, centuries later when they can make them come back to life. That's just nonsense. God is in control of all of that. All of the money in the world cannot purchase eternal life. So a person dies, he dies forever. You're not going to bring him back. You're not going to be able to buy it, no matter how much power you've had in your life. Maybe you controlled thousands and thousands of people's lives. Lived in the best houses and best places around the world. But you can't buy 1 minute to your life. When it comes to eternal matters, money is useless. Useless. All right, so we have verse 7. Surely he cannot redeem a brother or give God a ransom price for him. Now let's skip the parenthesis and come to the rest of the verse. That he should live on forever and never see the pit. In other words, he cannot buy a brother more life so that he can live on forever and never see the pit. Pit is a way of saying the grave, a place of decay, where the body goes down in and decays. That's what it means. So here's the lesson that the wise psalmist is passing on. The rich can't buy life. That person is going to die. His body's going to decay. To put it simple, death is unavoidable. It's inevitable. Use a couple of long words. A very wealthy man, even with all the money in the world, cannot redeem or pay a ransom price for himself or anyone else to prevent them from dying. God is the one who controls life and death. A rich man cannot purchase from God even one extra minute of life for anyone. Now, what kind of viewpoint are we developing here? We're developing a divine viewpoint. People can look at life from one or two viewpoints. The one of God, which is divine, or one can look at it from a human viewpoint, that life is just what we see and what we know as humans. That's supposed to be a V. Not a very good V, is it? Divine viewpoint is how God looks at things, what the Word of God says about things. The human viewpoint is what a human says. Ignorant of the Word, not knowing God, that type of thing. So if we know from the divine viewpoint everyone dies, and even though a human viewpoint might say, oh, we're going to try to make them live longer, they're being told right now, nope, that's not going to happen. And this is a truth they can know if they'll accept it. This is not a big revelation. Everyone dies. No one's avoided death. Everyone dies, even those great people in the past that they call great, whether they be conquerors or kings or great prophets or whoever. They've all died. So when it comes to death, money is worthless. Power is worthless. Verse 10 even pushes this point further. Listen to this one. This is an interesting point. You might not expect to see this one. For he sees, this is the rich man can see, or just anybody, that even the wise die. The fool and senseless alike must perish and leave their wealth to others. So here he's saying that even the wise die. Even the wise die. Even this psalmist who wrote this died. Everyone dies. The fool, the person who believes there's no God or rejects God. The senseless who totally shuts out God when it's time to become aware of Him. He's insensitive to God or awareness of God. Both of them perish too. So the wise person who actually develops a relationship with God, he's going to die. His body's going to die and go to the grave and decay. The fool and senseless alike must perish. All of them do what? Leave their wealth to others. Whether they have a lot of money or little money, you leave what you have to others. Others are going to get it. Others are going to get what you have. So everyone dies, even the wise, the foolish, the senseless. All the wealth they've accumulated, what little power they've gained, it's gone. Now, in the mind of the rich and powerful, from their human viewpoint, they somehow think that they continue their life. They can continue their life even after they're gone. What are some of the ways they do that? That people remember them? Yeah, they'll put up memorials. They'll put up monuments. But really, even people forget about them after a while. Most everyone gets forgotten. Now, you may remember, or people may remember People for the last couple hundred years, people still remember some of the founders of the United States like George Washington and Benjamin Franklin. But they've been dead and gone for well over 200 years now. But what about the people who were here before them? Or before them? Or before them? The many Indian tribes that went through these areas, one after the other, conquering each other, killing each other, enslaving each other, continues on for history, all history. Same way in Europe or Asia or the islands. People come and go. People die. They leave their wealth. They leave their power behind. That is the argument that the wise psalmist is telling people. Listen, all the power and the wealth can't gain you life. Everyone dies and everyone leaves it behind. Understand that. So, should you fear those who have all that power and wealth? No. They're going to die. All the power is going to disappear. That's not where our focus is. Now, let me just say this. He doesn't give the whole answer here of what we might expect. Let's put it that way. Listen to verse 11. It describes what I've been talking about. Their inner thought is that their houses are forever, and their dwelling places to all generations. They have called their lands after their own names. Their inner thoughts, what they're thinking, their inner feelings. They think, oh, I'm going to leave this big house and all this property to my kids. And they'll leave it to their kids and their kids, but they're all going to die. And eventually that property is getting old, and it's going to rot, and it's going to be destroyed, and it's going to be leveled. Or it just might be emptied out like a 500-year-old castle and just be a bunch of ruins. Nothing there. Nothing there. They have called their lands after their own names, so they name some property after themselves, or a street, or maybe a hospital wing, or building. It has their name on it. Have you ever come across a building and seen names on it and said, I wonder who that was? They may have a plaque up, you can learn about them, but so what? They're dead and gone. Whether they gave the building or not, it doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean a thing. Let me talk about one word here in this particular verse. Some of your translations have the word graves in that first line instead of inner thoughts. Well, this is because when they copied the Hebrew, some think they copied it wrong. And it should be the word graves instead of inner thought. It's basically one letter difference. They switched a letter. That's what they're saying. They switched a couple of letters around. We're not sure that happened, so I just take it as it originally was said in the old Hebrew text. So, people think that if they name some place after them, that somehow it perpetuates their life. I think you see this with people who make movies. They think, my history is on that film and it'll go on forever. No, it won't. No, it won't, and no one will care. Sometimes I watch old movies and every actor that I know of in that movie has been dead for many, many years. I'm just watching an image of what they used to look like. But their bodies are dead and gone and decayed. There's nothing there anymore. Whatever power and wealth and fame they had, it's all gone. It's all gone. Passed on to the relatives. Maybe the relatives lost all the money and power, and it passed on, and it's all gone now. The point is that all the power and wealth that's accumulated by someone, when you die, that's all gone. And you have to ask the question, what do you have now? Now that'll be answered later on in this psalm. But let's continue as the psalmist demolishes this argument of the powerful and rich. But man in his splendor will not remain. He is like beasts that perish. Splendor means his honor and glory. We might add fame and wealth. The people who have great fame and wealth and money and power, they're not going to remain. The word remain here is interesting. The word is lodge, like you spend the night somewhere. It's not going to last much longer. Its time of being here is gone. The temporal place they lived will be gone. You ever stayed in a motel? Stay there a night or two, then you move on? Well, you're out of there. And that's what happens to every person. When it comes to their splendor and glory, whatever they had, their power, it'll be gone soon. Look at the comparison. He is like the beast that perish. The word for beast here is also the word for cow. He's like a cow. He's no different than a cow that lived in the barn or out in the field. He's going to die just like the cow. Verse 13 kind of ends the description of this thinking that they have. This is the way of those who are foolish, of those after who, and though, let me start over. This is the way of those who are foolish, and of those after them who approve their words. Selah. So what we just described in the last few verses, this is the way of those who are foolish. This is the path they have taken. The foolish are those who have ignored God, who live for wealth and power, and of those who approve of that. In other words, those who also believe that. They may not ever accumulate that much wealth and power, but they still believe that's the way to live. Oh, if I only had this, if I only had that. No. That's all human viewpoint. That's what it means when it says who approve their words, who think they have got it right. Make money, get power. Live this life now while you can, the best you can. Don't you hear that about every day? Well, that's foolish talk. Because this life, no matter how much power, how much wealth, is going to end, and you can't stop it. Now let's understand, I don't want you to get the wrong impression, that it's not having wealth that is seen as foolish. There are good Christian people who have wealth. It's the attitude that comes with it. Rich people often think that they're self-sufficient. That means a self-sufficient person thinks that he can totally take care of himself. He made himself. He's a self-made man. He's built his business. Maybe he has built his business. But he hadn't done a thing without God providing him everything he needed to do it. Whether it means the health or the life, the opportunity. No one is self-sufficient. Everyone is somehow dependent upon God. And what happens with these people who become so self-sufficient, they become powerful. People look up to them, which reinforces their wrong thinking. And they also think, because there's no God, that they don't have to answer to God. They don't think there's going to be a judgment. If there's no God, there's no judgment. So they can abuse and cheat and mistreat and learn how to get away with things that people who are moral do not. So they do everything they can get away with and make lots of money and say, look at me. Others think, well, that's the way to go. That's the way to do it. I'm going to do that too. Even though they don't make near as much money or get near as powerful, they look up to them because of their philosophy. Their philosophy is the way they view life. And what the psalmist is doing is saying, don't look at life that way, because here's where it ends. And this is where we come to the answer to the question that we saw some time ago. All right, let's look at the answer to the question, verses 14 through 20. Here's what's going to happen to those rich people. Verse 14. Here's why we shouldn't fear the day of trouble. Here's the answer. It See if I can get up there a little bit better than that for you. Here we go. Oh boy. Verse 14. As sheep they are appointed for Sheol, death shall shepherd them, and the upright shall rule over them in the morning, and their form shall be for Sheol to consume away from his lofty mansion. All those rich and powerful, those who are trying to buy life, can't do it. Listen to what they're compared to. As sheep, they're appointed for Sheol. Appoint means that they're assigned to go to Sheol. Sheol is the place of death. Just keep that in mind. Or the grave. Death shall shepherd them. They're like sheep. And their shepherd is death. He's going to guide them to Sheol. And the upright shall rule over them in the morning. Let's talk about the morning. The morning, as we look at a morning, we think of a new day, and that's the idea. It's a new day, and what's it represent? It represents when God steps in and he makes things right again. The upright shall rule over them. God is going to, what we call, vindicate or justify the way the faithful believer lived. And when that happens, they're going to find themselves in heaven or in the kingdom of God, and those rich and powerful who have rejected God, they're going to find themselves forever in death. By that I mean separated from God. Goes on to say, and their form, that's their body, what's left of the body, shall be for Sheol, the grave, to consume away from his lofty mansion. So, let's look at our verse one more time. The end of it, away from the lofty mansion, wherever that rich and powerful man lived, or people, or women, or children. They're going to end up dead away from that beautiful home they once lived in. As sheep they are appointed for Sheol, death shall shepherd them, and the upright shall rule over them in the morning, and their form shall be for Sheol to consume away from his lofty mansion. This verse sums up what happens to people who are wealthy without God. They have lived to make money and gain power, and many believe in that philosophy. They all end up in the same place. They really don't have life. They're already dead in a sense. So they're just going through existence on this earth without God, on the way to Sheol. You think about that. There are mostly, we think of the old men, sometimes old women, in their 80s and 90s, maybe even close to 100 or more years old, who are very, very wealthy, but they don't know God. They've lived almost 100 years without God, and they're basically been on their way to Sheol all this time, and there's no stopping it. However, for the righteous, the upright, when that day comes when God judges and vindicates the believer, he makes things right. For the believer, for the righteous, the darkness is over. The trials of life, much of which came from the rich and powerful, are over. God brings in the light for the believer to bask in the eternal life granted him in his eternal home. So what is the basic lesson here? From what we've seen in this psalm so far, listen. Here it is. There is no good reason to strive for wealth and power, or be afraid of those who have gained both. The temporal wealth and power on earth mean nothing in the eternal realm. However, our lesson is not over. Our lesson is not over. Verse 15 presents hope for the faithful believer and continues to answer the question about why you're not to fear those days of evil. Verse 15. But God will redeem my life from the power of Sheol, for he will receive me, Selah. Now what this is saying is, remember earlier we saw that even the wise will die? Yes, they do. So even the wise, they will die and their bodies will go to the grave. But they also look forward to the resurrection. Now they didn't have a whole lot about the resurrection in the Old Testament. Not a lot is said about it. But from what we know now in the New Testament, that's a big, big deal. When we die now, our spirit goes to be with the Lord. If we're on the earth when the Lord returns, we'll go up into the air and he will give us our new bodies for eternity. But one of these days, we're going to be resurrected. Notice this second line here. I'm going to put this verse back up here again. Look at the second line. I'm going to keep my picture up there for you. It's a beautiful picture, isn't it? For he will receive me. God will receive us. God has paid the price for the believer's redemption through his Son. We know that to be Christ's sacrifice on the cross. Death does not keep the believer like the unbeliever. We will have resurrection. Now, again, let me remind you, from the New Testament viewpoint, we have a lot more information than those in the Old Testament. They knew a little about resurrection. They didn't know how this was all going to work out. They didn't know about Christ coming a second time and catching people up in the air. That was a mystery. But we do. All right? So, the Old Testament believer believed that God would redeem him. Notice, the same word redeemed, the same word for redeem is the same word that the rich were trying to redeem his brother with. God will redeem us. He's already done so through the life of Christ. That's happened already. He bought us through the sacrifice of his own Son, who paid the penalty of our sins on the cross. He suffered our penalty, which satisfied God what he required, so that when we die, we will be received to him. That hadn't happened when this was written. But they do understand something in the resurrection, and we get a lot more from the New Testament, plus we know the story of Christ. So death does not keep the believer like the unbeliever. The unbeliever, on the other hand, just goes to death and he stays there. He stays judged. He stays in darkness. He stays in misery. He goes down to torments until the last judgment. He's called up. God will tell him where he did wrong. That's the Lord Jesus Christ will tell him where he did wrong, and he'll be sent into the lake of fire forever. And they'll understand that their penalty was perfectly fair, and they rejected the gift of eternal life from Jesus Christ, what he did. So now that you know that, faithful, you're not to be fearful of the troubled day, that difficult day, those days of evil. Verse 16, do not be afraid when a man becomes rich, when the glory of his house increases. People get rich all the time. It comes and goes. Or they get powerful. Don't be afraid of them. Don't buy into that philosophy. Even though they will heap abuse on you and mistreat you and say, you poor little person. But see, you didn't play that game of wealth and power. You didn't cheat people. It doesn't mean you can't make money by working hard. But many of those systems now are so corrupt, it's difficult sometimes to be honest and make good money. Many businesses are corrupt, government's corrupt, the laws aren't fair, and so on. So let's look at this verse again. Do not be afraid when a man becomes rich, when the glory of his house increases. In other words, his estate, they call it, gets bigger and bigger, more property, more money. Verse 17. For when he dies, he will carry away nothing. His glory will not go down with him. This is pretty simple to understand, actually. When he dies, he gets none of that stuff goes with him to wherever he goes, to the grave. His glory, all the wealth and power and pride, that doesn't go down to the grave either. He can't take that down. He can't drive his nice new car down to hell or live in his mansion down there. It won't be there. Listen to what he says about himself while still on earth. Verse 18. Though he blesses himself in his life, and people praise you when you do well for yourself, here's what he does. He says, boy, I'm just a blessed person. I'm going to keep blessing myself. I'm going to keep buying stuff for myself, keep accumulating this power and wealth, and just enjoy life. And people praise him, saying things, boy, you're sure doing well, aren't you? We're so glad that you're doing well. Good for you. Good for you. And yet he's as corrupt as can be. He doesn't know God. Maybe he's not even that corrupt, but without God, he's still going to end up in Sheol and death and separated from God forever. Verse 19, it, referring to his life, shall go to the generation of the fathers. They will never see the light. So his life is going to be like his fathers, who also rejected God. It goes on for generations and generations without God, without eternal life. They will never see the light. They will never see the light of God and eternal life, except for that last judgment, where they hear the final ruling for all eternity. They've lived for no good reason, is what it amounts to. Our final verse is a summary statement and a conclusion. Man in his splendor, yet without understanding, is like beasts that perish. Man in his splendor is a way of saying with all his honor and glory and power and wealth, yet without understanding, not understanding things like this proverb or like this song. That's also a proverb, a lesson. Because he doesn't understand that it's all about life with God. He's like the beast that perish, that old cow that dies. He never understands what life is really about. He does not understand life's purpose and how to really enjoy life on earth. So as he begins to reject God at a young life and harden his heart all his life, ignores God, rejects any information about Jesus Christ that he needs to hear, he dies like cattle. Well, the answer that we've gotten in these last several verses to that question at the beginning of the psalm, this answer is really only partial. But because we know what other scripture teaches, we know there's more to it. We know especially even more with the New Testament that we're to live our life sacrificially for God, to serve him, to tell others of Jesus Christ. But what we learn from this lesson, even though it's not quite complete as we might see it here, it's an important part to understand. Now listen, Here's what you need to know from this lesson. Life is not about making money. It's not about getting power and all the stuff that comes with it. The people praising you, all the material gain. That type of thinking puts one on the wrong path and keeps him there. The other part of the lesson is that those who are faithful have no reason to fear them. And here's where we really don't get the information you might need when you try to put this whole package together, but God is in control. God will provide you the protection you need even if you're abused by the rich and powerful. You keep going the right path of serving God, growing spiritually. Scripture teaches that life only begins when one knows God. We can go on and say further, life only begins when one believes in Jesus Christ and he has eternal life and walks with him while on earth. That is, you're in fellowship, you're living an obedient life, you're growing in the Word. Give ourselves over to sacrificial service. So when it comes down to it, it makes little difference how much money you have or how much power you get. It is your attitude towards serving God. And then God gives us all we need to serve Him. I use this illustration sometimes. What if someone gave you or your family $10 million? Do you think you'd still be sitting here listening to this Bible lesson? I think a lot of people will be immediately trying to figure out how to spend that money or how to save it. I'll get to my Bible study later. Maybe, maybe not. The point is, money becomes a huge distraction. Now, don't misunderstand. Christians can be wealthy. You can work hard and make a lot of money. That's true. As long as you keep your priority with God right. Some people want to work and work and work. Do you have time for your Bible study? To serve God? To grow in the Word so you can become like your Savior, Jesus Christ? Yeah, but I got to make money. Got to make money. No, you don't. You make what you need to make a living. You don't live to make money. You only make money to pay your bills and take care of yourself and whatever other obligations you have. Don't fall into that big trap of the world that says you've got to make money. You've got to make lots of money. Now, I'm not saying you don't have a job. No, don't misunderstand. Yes, we need to work, depending on your role and station in life, whether you're a wife or mother or child. But one of these days, when you get older and you graduate from high school or maybe go on to college or go on to trade school or whatever you do, your life is about walking with Jesus Christ. Not about making money. Not about getting powerful. And don't worry about them that do. We've learned what their destination is. We learned where they're going to end up. It's sad, but they chose to go that way. Remember this, God gives us all we need to serve Him. Just do what's right in the eyes of God. Well, let's close by looking at our translation. Psalm 49. For the director of music of the sons of Korah, a psalm. Hear this, all peoples, give ear, all inhabitants of the world, even the sons of mankind, even the sons of man, rich and poor together. My mouth shall speak wisdom, the meditation of my heart shall be understanding. I will incline my ear to a proverb, I will expound my riddle on the lyre. Why should I fear in days of evil, when the iniquity of those who cheat me surrounds me, those who trust in their wealth and boast in their great riches? Surely he cannot redeem a brother, or give God a ransom price for him. Then we have this parenthesis. For the redemption price of their life is too costly, and he ceases forever. That he should live on forever and never see the pit. Remember, that's a continuation off of verse 7. For he sees that even the wise die, the fool and the senseless alike must perish and leave their wealth to others. Their inner thought is that their houses are forever and their dwelling places to all generations. They have called their lands after their own names. But man in his splendor will not remain. He is like the beast to perish. This is the way of those who are foolish and those after them who approve their words. As sheep they are appointed for Sheol. Death shall shepherd them, and the upright shall rule over them in the morning, and their form shall be for Sheol to consume away from his lofty mansion. But God will redeem my life from the power of Sheol, for he will receive me, Selah. Do not be afraid when a man becomes rich, when the glory of his house increases. For when he dies, he will carry nothing away. His glory will not go down with him. Though he blesses himself in his life, and people praise you when you do well for yourself, his life, shall go to the generation of his fathers. They will never see the light. Man in his splendor, yet without understanding, is like beasts that perish. Let's pray. Father, thank you that you have given us so much wisdom from this psalm, that we begin to understand, and a very, very important lesson in life, that we don't live for money or power, nor do we fear those, but we should fear you and live a reverent life towards you in sacrificial service. Thank you for these wise words. In Jesus' name, amen.